Economics, Standard 11, Unit 2, Consumption Analysis continued. Under consumption analysis, we have cardinal utility analysis. Cardinal means measurable, countable. Under cardinal utility analysis, let us learn today the law of diminishing marginal utility, which we call it as DMU. The law of diminishing marginal utility was first formulated by Jegan first formulated this law of diminishing marginal utility, and that is why Jegan called this law as Gerson's first law of consumption. Later, Marshall perfected this law on the basis of cardinal analysis, and that is countable analysis. So this law is based on the characteristics of human wants. That is, we learnt wants are settable. Based on that, this law is just derived. And according to Marshall, he states that the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. So according to Marshall, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of the stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. And of course, as per the law, it has got its own assumptions. The first assumption is utility can be measured by cardinal numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So utility can be measured by cardinal numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Second, the marginal utility of money of the consumer remains constant. And third, the consumer should be a rational consumer, and his aim is to attain maximum satisfaction with minimum expenditure. To attain maximum satisfaction with minimum expenditure. And the fourth one is the units of commodity consumed must be reasonable in size. And fifth, the commodity consumed should be homogeneous or uniform in character like weight, quality, taste, color and etc. The sixth one is the consumption of goods must take place continuously without any break at a given period of time. Continuously at a given period of time. And the seventh assumption is there should be no change in the taste, habits, preferences, fashions, income and character of the consumer during the process of consumption. So there are 7 assumptions for this law. Now this law can be explained with a simple illustration. Suppose a consumer wants to consume 7 apples, one after another. The utility from the first apple is 20. But the utility from the second apple will be less than 20, say 15. Then the utility of the third apple will be less than 15 and say 10 and so on. So finally, the utility from the fifth apple becomes 0 and the utilities from 6th and 7th apple are negative. This tendency is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. This can be illustrated in diagram. Let us say here the table. So unit apple, total utility and marginal utility. One apple, the total utility and marginal utility are the same, 20-20. When the consumer consumes the second apple, then total utility decreases to 5, so 15. So 15, that is 35 minus 20. So that is what taken into consideration. So here automatically 15 plus 20, 35 is the total utility. And the third apple, then once again 5 reduction, so 10 plus 35, 45 becomes the total utility. When the consumer consumes the fourth apple, then total marginal utility goes to 5. So 45 plus 5, 50 will be the total utility. When the consumer consumes the fifth apple, then the marginal utility goes as 0. And so automatically 0 plus 50, it remains as 50 as the total utility. And consumer consumes the sixth apple, then marginal utility goes beyond 0, negative minus 5. So here 50 minus 5, 45. 7th apple, automatically minus 10, 35. So when marginal utility decreases or negative, total utility also decreases. This can be applied now in the diagram. So x-axis number of apples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in y-axis, total utility and marginal utility, we are marked as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60. So the first apple, 20 and 20, so both are equal. And the second apple, when the consumer consumes, and marginal utility is only 15. Marginal utility is only 15, but whereas the total utility is 35. So let us just take it as consideration, 35. And third apple, total utility is 45. And when the consumer consumes the third apple, but marginal utility is only 10. So 10. Okay. And fourth apple, 50. Total utility for fourth apple consumption is 50. But whereas marginal utility is just 5. So you can remember for the fourth apple. Okay. So 50. And the fifth apple, once again 50 only. So you have to just consider here, and marginal utility becomes 0, and here 50. And for the sixth apple, 45. Once again it just reduces to, and here it just goes beyond 5. Beyond 5, that is negative. So here you can just mark it, and beyond 0, negative point. You can mark it this way. And then here sixth one, automatically 45. So it will just go for 45 here, and then this comes as beyond 6, negative. Seventh apple, 35. Once again, for the seventh apple, beyond 5, then it goes down here. So now when we join this mu and tu, we get the curve that is 20 and then 35. Then it just decreases here, decreases. And same thing here, you can just join this part completely, and it goes negative downwards. And this you can easily see it, and clearly you can understand how the marginal utility and the total utility just decreases. This is total utility and this is marginal utility. So as total utility also decreases, marginal utility also decreases. When the consumer's marginal utility decreases beyond that is 0, in the negative point, the total utility of the consumer also decreases. So this is what we can clearly understand the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so this diagram clearly explains to you the law. And we find that the total utility goes on increasing but at diminishing rate. On the other hand, marginal utility goes on diminishing. When marginal utility becomes 0, then the total utility is maximum. So here, when marginal utility is 0, total utility is maximum. But when marginal utility goes in the negative beyond 0, negative, total utility also starts decreasing. So that's what we find it. It becomes negative. Marginal utility becomes negative. The total utility diminishes. This can be clearly seen in this diagram. Okay. Of course, this law also has got certain criticisms. Utility cannot be measured numerically. All the utilities cannot be measured numerically because utility is subjective. Second criticism is this law is based on unrealistic assumption. And third important point is the law of DMU is the basis of progressive taxation. The finance minister taxes more for moneyed person and less for less moneyed person, and so on. And also it is emphasizes an equitable distribution of wealth, and redistribution of income from rich to poor is also justified according to this law. Anyhow, we can just find out that this law is the basis for all the laws of consumers or all the laws of consumption. Let us learn the next unit in the next class.